back to G-Sphere training. This training session is about G-Sphere multi-sampling. G-Sphere multi-sampling is a very powerful function and has a lot of implications throughout the application. It's a very important chapter to successfully building and managing good portfolios. We'll start again with Peter's IRA account. And let's just go back and we'll start with a blank slate on this portfolio. This is where all the multi-sampling happens. Previously, we had only been using one sample period. Now, it's appropriate to use one sample period if we're reporting basic performance on a portfolio from a historical perspective. But a lot of your work in G-Sphere is going to be more forward-looking. And part of what we want to do is we want to look at the past to help us predict the future. So, to that extent, there's a number of different techniques that we can apply to help understand how the past is more like the future. One very simple process is this default multi-sampling. Now, gravity will change the default multi-sampling from time to time. However, here we see that the default gives us 4 different time periods, each trailing from today, one going back 10 years, 2 going back 5 years, the third period going back 3 years, the fourth period going back 1 year. You can see also that we're blending different monthly, weekly, and daily observation frequencies, and we also have a diminishing weight as the length of the sample period shortens. What this does, in effect, gives us an exponential weighted average, saying that the more recent past is a more valuable predictor of the future than the more distant past is. Other different techniques for using the multi-sampling involve selecting different bull or bear periods, or emphasizing or de-emphasizing specific events, or also adding extra emphasis to different historical periods which match your macroeconomic sentiment. For example, there's a TARP legislation that was passed in the United States somewhere around early October 2008. Also at that period of time, the worst of the credit crisis was likely in the past, and therefore the period of time since then takes on some different characteristics which, let's just say in my judgment, are more valuable. So the more valuable you feel a period is in its predictive ability, the more weight you'd like to give that sample. Now, the weight only comes into play when you add multiple samples. Let's go ahead and add a second sample, and let's make this sample the preceding bear market that started somewhere in October 2007, and let's just say that continued through March, somewhere in the middle of March 2009. Now, the more I think that bear market period is a good predictor for the future, then the more weight I want to give it. I'm going to take on a more bullish disposition and de-emphasize that weight, but I do still feel that there's valuable information in there that could be assimilated with other periods to help us come up with the best predictions possible. So I'm going to give that a 3/4 weight. Next, I'm going to add a bull market period for that period preceding this bear market. So I'm going to set my end date to the start date, and I'm going to go back through 2002. Now, I might be a little bit bullish, but I'm no raging bull, so I'm going to keep the weight on this, again, equal at 0.75, so it's equal to the weight that I assigned to that bear market period. Last, I'm going to add one additional sample of what I'm going to call an emerging bull period, starting at the tail end of the tech bubble and leading into the bull market. Now, we already have some overlap of this period with these other periods. That doesn't matter whatsoever. What matters is that I want to add extra emphasis to this period because I think it has some predictive ability in the risk, return, and correlations of the assets. So whatever you select, as long as you have a strong fundamental basis for making those decisions, you should be adding value to the process, applying your investment management judgment, and therefore producing superior capital market assumptions that are just going to result in a portfolio which better corresponds to its actual real-life performance. The goal here isn't to try to load the portfolio one side or the other, but just to get it as accurate as possible, and then G-Sphere is going to do the rest for you from there. The way this works, for each one of these samples selected, G-Sphere calculates a risk, return, and a correlation statistic. And then the final risk, return, and correlation statistics appearing in the next step are simply the weighted average of all these different samples that we've added here. This is a reasonably significant message. It tells me that in this second sample, I've got several assets which didn't have any data. And we've also got two assets that didn't have data in one particular sample. Now, there's a couple different ways of treating this. One, I could change my sampling assumptions to have more complete coverage. But I can see here that my second sample has a weight of 0.75, so which is approximately a fifth of the total weight of the portfolio. So I'm going to be willing to let those in the portfolio and continue with this as it is, because it's not going to have a monstrous impact on the overall risk, return, and correlation statistics. In addition to that, we're going to show some functions like the shrinkage functions, which will help ameliorate any of the differences due to having different start and end dates for any particular assets. So go ahead and use this to manifest your tactical judgments. If you're a completely strategic, that doesn't mean that you can't apply your macroeconomic judgments into the selection of your sample periods. I'm going to click Next here. And the last note on multi-sampling, these risk and return values have not been updated yet. These are still those 5-year numbers. I need to click on the Update Historical Risk and Return button to true up these return values, these risk values, to make sure that they're reflective of whatever new assumptions I've added as I make this portfolio more forward-looking.